Welcome to day 17 of the 28-day photo challenge. Now this one's a little bit interesting. We're gonna be shooting either a single or dual color photo. So it's similar to the black and white photography, but we're either gonna be limiting the photo to only a single color palette or two colors, which is actually a very common thing that they do in cinematography. Now ideally for this challenge, I wanted to find something easy to shoot in a single or dual color. Now this is kind of like black and white photography in the sense that we're using contrasts to distinguish items from their background or foreground. But when you introduce a dual color, which is like the leading part of cinematography, is they always have two dominant colors in pretty much every film out there. But the single color aspect of this is what I want to emphasize on, because when you're thinking of a dual color, you're essentially using a single color twice. So by getting into single color first, and then we'll get into dual color, we'll be able to get kind of a better understanding of how it works. So for instance, this vise that I picked up. This thing was 35 bucks. I still have to do tons of repairs to it. But that being said, it has years of abuse that's given the thing tons of character. I figured that this would be a good element to try and capture using those two principles. Because we have character, something that we want to establish in the photo, and we have two accent colors that we can highlight. So gold and blue. That's kind of like the base for pretty much everything when it comes to a dual color. Is you use orange and teal because the sky is blue, so teal falls into that category. And the sun, yellow, orange, red, depending on the position of it to the earth, so that falls in line with orange. So those are the two main aspects that we're constantly seeing all the time, which is kind of why Hollywood went after that for years. Like the cinematic look was to have blue shadows and orange highlights on basically everything that was shot. Now, two extremely good examples of dual color are the movie Ad Astra and Blade Runner 2049. Because pretty much every single scene in both of those movies is a single color scene or a dual color scene. Now there's also the aspect of going into triple colors or quadruple colors, but that's completely out of the spec of this video, because then instead of going to complementary colors, you're going to contradictory colors to add contrast. And I don't know, there's way more to it that we're not going to get into that's beyond a beginner level. But I just want to put that out there just so you know there is more to this. This isn't just like the base playing field and that's it. No, I have my variable ND filter on here. I don't need it for this, so you don't actually need to have one, at least in this kind of example, because I was trying to think of like something like rusted and kind of dilapidated or whatever, and I figured, okay, well, what better place than the garage, because I've been doing renovations in this since I bought the house and it's still nowhere near done. So what a perfect example. Again, you don't need a variable neutral density filter. I just have it on here. From the last shoot, I just left it on, and I don't really want to take it off in the garage because it's like disgusting in here. So all we have to do is get a battery. Now that we have a battery, I'm going to run through the settings. I've also taken off that variable ND filter because it's not needed. I just put the lens hood on because I'm using like these ridiculous Amazon LED lights that throw light everywhere, and I don't want to have any sort of like glare, like not like a lens flare, but glare. So this will help reduce that. Now I'm going to be shooting at f2.8 instead of f4, which is on right now. So we'll bring that down to f2.8 because I have the glass, so might as well. However, f4, maybe zoom in to like 70, something like that. That would be completely acceptable. But realistically, that's out of the scope of this video. All we're doing is going with color. I'm just trying to make the best example to understand. So I'm shooting at aperture priority. So that way the camera is going to automatically adjust the shutter speed based on the aperture, because that is its priority. And I'm going to be adjusting the automatic shutter speed by raising the ISO as needed. So if we come in here, I'll just throw autofocus on so you can snap in on that really quick. And you can see that the shutter speed is 6 and 8, so it's fluctuating. That's way too low. There's no way I'm going to be able to hold that and keep like a good still photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the ISO to about, I'll keep it 640. I was going to go 800. And yeah, see, that's a 30th of a second, a little bit less, so I am going to go up to 800. So we're about 50, 60th of a second, which is going to be fine for handheld. I pretty much want the vise, so like right here is what I'm going to be going for, with the drill bits and all the other crap in the background. For this example, I want the autofocus to be over here. I'm going to focus on the vise. I'm going to move over so that way just taking up that corner. Okay, so now before I bring that picture up, I just want to explain that the color profile on this camera, like I have like different settings for all the different video things and everything. Essentially, I shoot as gray as possible. I try and take out as much of the black and as much of the white. So that way I have a completely gray spectrum that I'm working with. And then all of the colors are just hidden in between there. And when shooting video, it's even more washed out. But that's good. It gives me a really flat color range that I can adjust from. Nothing is blown out, overexposed, underexposed, etc. So now, what you're seeing is the picture directly from the camera with no editing at all. So all I'm going to do is raise the highlights and the shadows, and I'm going to emphasize the gold of the drill bits. So that way I'm only adding one primary color, which is going to be gold. So it's going to be right in between the yellow and the orange. And that's the only color that I'm raising in this picture, which you can see has emphasized the drill bits, but it's also taken a lot of character into the vise itself, because now the little rust pockets and stuff that naturally have an orangish look to them are popping out a little bit more than they previously were. I've also adjusted the exposure a little bit to add just a little bit more darkness to the picture, so that way it's a little bit more underexposed and it's giving more of like a rustic kind of dilapidated vibe to it. So that's single color. Now for dual colors, I'm going to be using this exact same picture. Now I'm going to be introducing blue into the shadows. So that way the vise is going to represent a little bit more of a cooler tone. It's going to make the actual box that the drill bits are in pop out because more of that blue is going to be standing. And because of the contrast between blue and yellow, because they're at complete opposite ends of the color wheel or very close to it, the contrast between those colors is going to complement each other. So now you can actually see what I'm talking about with using dual colors. Now if we take that original raw photo and the single color one back to back, you can now see a side-by-side comparison of how much more emphasis there is on the picture just by having a single dominant color. Now again, if we take that single color picture and the dual color picture back to back, you can now see the difference of adding just a second dominant color. I haven't adjusted anything else. I haven't adjusted the hue or made any other adjustments. It's only been color and contrast. That's it. And both of these could be used into different moods. Now you can still do dual color, but using similar colors. So like an orange and a yellow or a red and a yellow, and that'll keep it significantly closer to a single color aspect, but still adding more depth. So there's tons of stuff that you could like actually play into this with. I want to take a picture of the engine bay where it says Unitronic on the intake, and then it has like the orange outline. Now I'm going to keep the camera zoomed in at 70. In this picture here, again, single dominance, I'm going to do orange. So now the entire photo has like a very orange aspect to it, which you can see because I'm not even going to bring up the original one. Like they just look like garbage anyway. So we're only going to look at the edited one. So we have tons of orange everywhere. The shadows have orange. The highlights have orange. Now, if we go over to the dual color, I'm only going to add red, but you can see that there's a significant difference between the orange and the red across all of the black elements that you normally wouldn't have noticed in the single color. Even though we're using two very similar colors, it still falls under being a dual color photo. Pretty much all I'm trying to get at is it's all in editing, and we're trying to use properties that we would normally find in black and white. So this is essentially using black and white techniques to take color photos. And now this falls significantly further into cinematography because this is used in pretty much every single shot. Like just for reference, if I take a shot of this in video, I'm going to take another shot here. I'm zoomed all the way in. I'm shooting at Cinema 4K. I'm going to turn autofocus off, and I'm just going to kind of manually focus this. So I'm going to keep this right about here, and I'm going to manually pull the focus in as I move. So now if we take a look at this shot, I've now added emphasis on every single thing by using that technique from photography into cinematography. That's why it's such a big aspect in this. Now again, I'll do the same thing with the engine bay, which is just popping into focus. Now I'm going to push that focus out a little bit so that way I get the rest of the logo. Now in those two examples, I've used the exact same sort of setup to make videos, and by setting them up to know the contrast, the lighting, and try and emphasize the colors that I'm naturally seeing right now. So I know that I want to emphasize color A and color B, then I can shoot according to those colors by using the same principles that you would take into black and white photography. Hopefully you got something out of this. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, or don't do any of it. I'm not telling you what to do.